Welcome to this explainer. All right, let's just jump right in because today we're going to look at your workplace through a completely different lens. I want you to step into the shoes of an organizational development expert, an OD consultant who's just been brought in to diagnose the health of a seriously struggling team. Now, we are not going to be looking at spreadsheets or profit margins today. Instead, we're going to treat your organization like a living, breathing biological organism. Because just like a human body, your team's ultimate goal isn't really just to work. It's to survive, to adapt, and to thrive. To understand how to heal a team, we actually have to look at biology first. Over a century ago, the American physiologist Walter B. Cannon popularized this fascinating concept to describe how the human body survives. He called it homeostasis. He noted that homeostasis means a condition that may vary, but which is relatively constant. The word itself comes from the Greek for same and standing. Basically, it is the biological playbook for keeping everything in balance, even when the outside environment is just throwing absolute chaos your way.
And that brilliantly illustrates our core definition for today. Homeostasis is that state of relative constancy in an internal environment, and it is literally the body's most important business. Think about it. Human cells can only survive in a healthy condition when their temperature, their pressure, and their chemical composition stay relatively stable. If your body temperature drops too low, well, your organs shut down. The exact same principle applies to your organization. The cells of your company are your team members. If their internal environment becomes toxic, chaotic, or just wildly unbalanced, the organizational organism starts to break down. Disease literally sets in.
So how do you actually measure this biological health in a workplace? Well, Douglas McGregor, who was a real pioneer in management theory, gave us this diagnostic checklist for a healthy, well-functioning group. Look at these markers. The atmosphere is relaxed and informal. Tasks are well understood. People are having high levels of task-relevant discussion. There is a real freedom to express feelings and ideas. Decisions are based on consensus, not just some forced majority vote. And assignments are clear and accepted. This is what organizational homeostasis looks like out in the wild. Take a second right now and ask yourself honestly, does this describe your team? Or are your cells currently fighting off a virus of dysfunction? If your team doesn't look like McGregor's ideal list, you've got a problem. Your internal environment is totally out of balance. So the critical question becomes, how do we treat a dysfunctional team to restore that biological balance? I mean, when a doctor sees a sick patient, they prescribe medicine or physical therapy. When an OD consultant sees a sick organization, what's the actual treatment plan?
The medicine we use is called a human process intervention. This is our primary medical toolkit as organizational experts. These interventions are structured activities aimed directly at the interpersonal relations, the group dynamics, and the communication channels within a workplace. We aren't fixing the software or the assembly line here. We're fixing the human interactions that cause and sustain the problems in the first place. We are going in to cure the group's process ailments. Let's look at how this builds into a very specific treatment method. One of the most foundational human process interventions out there is Enver Schein's process consultation. Unlike a traditional consultant who just kind of walks in, hands you a report, and tells you what to do, a process consultant operates a lot more like a therapist for the team. They help the organization solve its own problems by making it aware of its internal dynamics. The steps are pretty straightforward. You formulate agenda-setting interventions, you provide feedback based on what you observe, you coach or counsel individuals, and eventually you give structural suggestions. The consultant doesn't magically cure the patient. They guide the patient's own immune system to cure itself. The crucial point here is that these interventions are incredibly practical. Let's contrast two specific tools right out of our OD toolkit. First, there's responsibility charting. You use this when a team is completely paralyzed by confusion over who does what. It's basically a grid that clearly assigns roles, like who needs to approve a decision, who supports it, and who just simply needs to be informed. It removes so much friction. Then we have the role analysis technique, uniquely acronymized as RAT. Despite the funny name, it is highly effective. This is where an employee defines their role in front of their coworkers, and the whole group provides feedback to eliminate role confusion. Both of these interventions act like a biological cleanse. They flush out ambiguity and restore healthy communication pathways. But to figure out exactly which intervention to use, we have to run some labs first. OD practitioners frequently use self-diagnostic surveys to uncover these hidden team dynamics. By having participants plot out their practices, say, weighing their concern for production against their concern for people, we can uncover the real power structures and interpersonal dynamics. It just gets everything out in the open. But a quick word of caution here. Just like a doctor shouldn't overprescribe antibiotics, a consultant shouldn't just blindly throw surveys at a team without addressing the actual fundamental issues they're facing. Now, we've talked a lot about the macro levels so far,
the group, the team, the entire organization. But all of these team-building exercises and process consultations raise a pretty massive question. How do these group exercises actually change human behavior? How do we go from a group workshop on a Friday afternoon to a permanently rewired employee on Monday morning? To answer that, we have to zoom way in. We have to go from the macroorganism down to the microcellular level, the individual human mind.
For decades, organizations relied on fundamentally flawed models of human learning, theories like behaviorism or computer functionalism. They basically treat employees like they're either simple stimulus response machines or programmable supercomputers. But humans aren't perfectly rational computers running a software program, right? We're way more complex than that. To really change behavior, we have to look to the work of Peter Jarvis in his existential approach to human learning. He champions a philosophy called non-reductive monism, which is really just a fancy academic way of saying the person is whole. Our mental properties, our meanings, our intentions, and our emotions, they are totally different from our physical brain chemistry, but they are intrinsically, undeniably connected. You absolutely cannot just train an employee's hands without engaging their mind.
And this brings us to a really beautiful quote from philosopher John McMurray, which was cited by Jarvis. He says, "We know existence by participating in existence." Think about that for a second. True learning isn't just about reading a training manual. It is existential. Because we are living organisms, truly changing how an employee works requires engaging their whole person. We learn by acting out in the external world and then thinking and feeling about those actions. We require primary experiences to truly rewire ourselves.
Jarvis breaks this human experience down into 4 pillars, and it brilliantly illustrates how an OD intervention actually works over time. It starts in a split second with a sensation, hearing, seeing, or feeling the external world. That sensation then triggers an episode, a moment of conscious contact. Maybe it's a moment of disjuncture where you suddenly realize your current way of doing things just isn't working anymore. Then comes consciousness, taking maybe an hour or so, where you internalize the meaning of what just happened. And finally, over a lifetime, this integrates completely into your biography. So when we do a human process intervention, we aren't just having a staff meeting. We are actively engineering an episode that we hope will permanently alter an employee's lifelong biography.
Let's look at one specific, incredibly powerful intervention that relies entirely on this existential whole-person learning. It's called Gestalt OD. Based on Gestalt therapy, this approach is all about the here and now. It demands that individuals own their actions and stop blocking off their awareness with dysfunctional behaviors. The Gestalt OD practitioner pushes absolutely everyone toward total authenticity, expressing both positive and negative feelings fully and openly. It forces the employee to experience a primary, immediate sensation, engaging their consciousness to completely shift their workplace biography.
This is the absolute core of experiential learning. As Jarvis defines it, human learning is the process where the whole person, body and mind, experiences a social situation and then transforms it cognitively, emotively, and practically. By participating in things like Gestalt, OD, role negotiations, or process consultations, we aren't just teaching employees a new HR policy. We are forcing them to participate in primary experiences that literally reshape who they are at work.
Okay, let's bring all of this together. How do we achieve that ultimate goal of organizational homeostasis? Well, first, we have to act as doctors, using human process interventions to clear out the blockers in communication and group dynamics. But we can't just stop there. We have to design actual primary learning episodes that engage the full consciousness and physical sensation of our staff. When we do this, we help build healthy, adaptable individual biographies. And when the individual cells are healthy, functioning and constantly adapting to their environment, well, the entire organizational organism thrives.
So I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder about your own workplace today. Think about the processes, the meetings, the way your coworkers actually speak to one another. Look at your organization through this biological lens. Is your team merely functioning like a program machine, blindly following inputs and outputs? Or is it truly alive, learning experientially, and striving for a healthy, dynamic homeostasis? The answer to that question might just change the way you manage, consult, and work forever. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning and keep growing.